The studio lights are blinding. Cameras glide slowly, hunting for every expression, every movement. It's a Sunday night primetime broadcast, but within seconds, the usual rhythm shatters. Jasmine Crockett doesn't wait for her turn to speak. She doesn't care for polite introductions or long winded questions. She pushes her notes aside and, with deliberate calm, pulls a slim black folder from beneath the desk. It's not flashy, but it's heavy with purpose. She opens it in full view of the audience, and the studio's air changes instantly. Papers land on the polished table with a quiet thud. Flight logs, dates, destinations, passenger lists, and there, in clear black print, Melania Trump. Another sheet slides forward. Bank transfers, not vague figures, but exact amounts. $420,000, 1 week, each number highlighted in bold yellow so the cameras can't possibly miss them. The host freezes mid-sentence. Roland Chase, the political commentator at the far side of the table, allows himself the faintest smirk. He knows the moment just shifted. Melania sits perfectly composed, her cream jacket sharp under the lights, but her fingers laced together a little tighter under the desk. Jasmine doesn't raise her voice. Her control is sharper than that. These records, she says evenly, pausing just long enough for the words to settle, show trips that never appeared on the First Lady's official schedule, and here, financial transfers that just happen to coincide with those dates. The live audience is silent. A few lean forward in their seats. One person in the shadows lifts a phone, already recording. This isn't a sudden emotional outburst. It's a calculated hit, delivered with the precision of a scalpel. Melania tilts her head slightly toward the host, as if to redirect the conversation, but Jasmine doesn't give her the chance. "I didn't come here with rumors," she continues, her tone still steady. "These are verified records, and if there's nothing to hide, then I expect an explanation." For a second, the cameras capture something subtle, the faint tightening of Melania's jaw, the pause before she answers. "I will not respond to speculation," she says, her accent clipped, almost cool. Jasmine's reply is immediate. "Then this will be your first opportunity to respond to something that's not speculation. It's documented." The audience lets out a quiet ripple, a low murmur that spreads like a signal. On social media, the clip is already finding its way into posts. "She brought receipts." The host tries to interject, to move on, but Roland cuts in. "Paul, you can't expect the public to ignore this. Policy and trust are tied together. If the facts don't line up, people have a right to know." From here, there's no turning back. Jasmine leans slightly toward the camera, her voice calm but pointed. "Every American watching tonight deserves leaders who are as transparent as they expect the public to be. And if that makes someone uncomfortable, maybe they have a reason for that discomfort." Melania holds her posture, chin high, smile still in place. But the camera catches the way her fingers press harder against each other. "I am comfortable with the truth," she says. "Then you'll have no problem explaining this truth," Jasmine answers. It's no longer a political discussion. It's an on-air challenge, and millions of viewers already know they've just witnessed the start of something that won't end when the cameras go dark. The host tries to pull the discussion back to policy matters, his voice carrying the kind of forced calm only a veteran broadcaster can fake. But the tension is already humming like a live wire under the desk. Jasmine's folder is still open, its highlighted pages a silent threat. She doesn't rush. She lets the quiet stretch just long enough for the audience to feel the weight of it. Then, in that same measured voice, she drops the next line. Transparency isn't optional. It applies to elected officials, appointed leaders, and yes, even those who live in the White House. The words land with surgical precision. Melania turns her head slightly, eyes sharper now. Her smile doesn't falter, but something in her expression hardens. She keeps her reply clean, controlled. It's important not to make personal accusations when we are here to discuss policy, Congresswoman. Oh, I agree, Jasmine says, the faintest curve of a smile tugging at her lips. Which is why I prefer to base my statements on evidence. Her fingers rest lightly on the edge of the folder, not opening it further, but making sure everyone knows. More is waiting inside. Roland leans back, that half smirk still playing on his face. He's been on enough panels to know when the temperature is about to spike. Paul, he says to the host, you can't separate policy from the people who push it. If we're talking about trust, character's part of that. Melania's head turns sharply toward him, the politeness still intact but colder now. She doesn't address Roland directly. Instead, she adjusts the cuff of her sleeve. A small gesture, but under these lights, it reads like a tell. Jasmine catches it. She keeps going. When we ask the public to trust us, it can't stop at the White House gates, she says. Public service means you answer questions, even when the answers aren't comfortable. Melania doesn't flinch. Concerns should be about policy, Congresswoman, not family matters. That depends, Jasmine replies, because if family matters intersect with public resources or official duties, then they're not just family matters anymore. The audience stirs, a wave of subtle motion, as if the entire room collectively inhaled. The host jumps in, trying again to steer the segment toward safer waters, but the energy in the room has shifted. Everyone knows the conversation has broken out of its polite boundaries. Melania leans slightly forward now, her voice firmer. The American people want their representatives to focus on work, not gossip. Jasmine tilts her head, almost amused. Exactly, which is why this isn't gossip. She lets the silence breathe for just a beat, then adds, it's documented. It's a chess match, each move calculated, each word chosen with care. The audience is leaning forward now, waiting for the next strike. The cameras catch the faint narrowing at the corners of Melania's eyes, the kind of micro-expression that speaks louder than any soundbite. Roland finally breaks the quiet with a low chuckle. Well, now you've got us all curious. Jasmine's gaze doesn't leave Melania. Let's just say they involve travel arrangements and financial movements that wouldn't matter if we weren't talking about the First Lady of the United States. There's no laughter now. No one in the room is looking anywhere but at the two women across the table. And Jasmine knows. She's drawing the line tighter, step by step, until there's nowhere left to retreat. The host shifts in his chair, clearly aware he's lost control of the conversation. His next question about international trade barely leaves his lips before Jasmine speaks over it, not loudly, but with a calm finality that cuts the air. You know, Paul, she says, eyes still locked on Melania, transparency rarely comes willingly. It usually takes a push. She taps the folder with two fingers, the sound faint but amplified by the silence in the room. In the past month, I've received information not from anonymous whispers, but documented sources that caught my attention, and I'm confident it would catch the public's attention too. The audience collectively leans forward. The host lets out a slow, audible breath. Congresswoman, if this is about a specific allegation, it's about patterns, Jasmine interrupts, her tone steady. Patterns involving travel that doesn't match official schedules. Financial transfers routed through accounts not typically used for government purposes. And dates that line up with some very curious public appearances. The camera cuts to Melania. Her expression is still poised, but her fingers tighten slightly where they rest on the desk. It's subtle, but the millions watching at home can see it. Roland raises an eyebrow, leaning toward his mic. You're saying you've got proof? Right there in that folder? I'm saying, Jasmine replies, lightly tapping the folder again, that I have records that anyone with the right access could verify. Melania finally speaks, her voice cool, but with an edge that wasn't there before. If you believe there is something inappropriate, there are proper channels for that, Congresswoman. Making accusations on television is not professional. This isn't an accusation, Jasmine says, never breaking eye contact. It's an opportunity for you to address it before it takes on a life of its own. The line lands like a challenge. A murmur ripples through the live audience. The host steps in quickly. All right, let's be careful here. This, Jasmine cuts in again, is how things get buried, and the American people have had enough of that. There's a stillness now, the kind of stillness that happens when everyone in the room realizes they're watching a moment that will be replayed for days. In the control room behind the glass, producers are frantically scribbling notes, but no one dares cut to commercial yet. Melania leans forward slightly, her words deliberate. You speak about public service, Congresswoman. This is theater. You want attention, not truth. If it's theater, Jasmine replies, then it's one where the audience already bought their tickets. I'm just giving them the scene they didn't expect. Roland laughs under his breath. This is the most tense segment I've seen in months. Jasmine finally places her palm flat on the folder. A small but unmistakable signal. I'm not here to embarrass anyone, First Lady Trump. I'm here to make sure every person in this country knows that power doesn't mean privacy when it affects public trust. And if we can't have this conversation in front of the people, then where? Melania's answer comes slower this time. The public trusts action, not gossip. Then it's a good thing this isn't gossip, Jasmine replies. The room is silent, but the energy is electric. Cameras zoom tighter. The stakes are no longer implied. They're sitting right there in black and white, under Jasmine's hand, waiting to be revealed. The host's voice carries that edge of nervousness only seasoned broadcasters get when they know something is slipping completely out of their hands. Congresswoman, we'll give you 1 minute before we... Jasmine doesn't wait. She pulls the folder closer, the black cover folding back to reveal the neatly stacked documents. The cameras catch the first page in a flash. Printed flight logs with bold yellow highlights. These, she begins, sliding the top sheet toward the center of the table, are travel records from last year. Dates, destinations, passenger lists, all tied to flights categorized as official but booked through private intermediaries. Roland tilts his head. That's unusual. It's more than unusual, Jasmine says evenly. On several occasions, these flights list the First Lady as the passenger of record, yet the destinations don't match any public schedule released by the White House. The host tries to jump in. Are you alleging? I'm stating, Jasmine cuts in, her tone sharpening without raising in volume, that the dates of these trips align with large, unexplained transfers between accounts held by shell companies connected to individuals currently under federal investigation. The room freezes. Even Roland's smirk fades. The only sound is the faint hum of the studio lights. Jasmine doesn't take her eyes off Melania. I'm not accusing you of wrongdoing. I am asking why the spouse of the President of the United States appears on travel manifests linked to private entities under scrutiny, and why those trips were never disclosed to the public. Melania's voice comes after a deliberate pause. I take many trips for my work as First Lady. Some are for my own projects. I am entitled to privacy in those matters. Privacy, Jasmine replies, is one thing. Using taxpayer resources for trips that coincide with suspicious financial activity is another. The host leans forward, almost instinctively gripping the edge of the desk. Congresswoman, we have to be careful about— I'm not implying, Jasmine interrupts again, sliding another sheet forward. Here are highlighted bank transfers totaling over $420,000 in the same weeks as those trips. And in each case, the public was told the First Lady was in entirely different locations. The camera cuts to Melania. She's still poised, but there's a stiffness in her jaw now, a tension in the set of her shoulders. If you are accusing me of something, she says coldly, say it clearly. I'm saying, Jasmine answers, that the American people deserve to know why their First Lady's documented movements don't match the official record, and why those movements align so neatly with private financial activity. The audience murmurs louder this time. The tension isn't just between the two women anymore. It's spread across the entire room. Melania sits back, her voice even colder. I will not play into political theater. My work speaks for itself. If someone wishes to investigate, they are free to waste their time. This isn't about wasting time, Jasmine says, leaning forward now, her voice unshaken. It's about protecting public trust. And if leaders want to keep that trust, they can't expect the people to accept it's private as an answer when the truth is sitting in plain sight. Roland exhales softly into his mic. Well, I don't know about the rest of America, but I think everyone watching just saw one of the most direct challenges ever made to a First Lady on live television. The host glances at the clock. Still 3 minutes to the break. Too much time to kill the tension, not enough to change the subject. And Jasmine, folder still open, doesn't look like she's done. The studio feels heavier now, the air dense with the kind of tension that makes every movement deliberate. The host clears his throat, trying for a smooth transition. We'll give the Congresswoman the floor for one last comment before we move on. Jasmine doesn't rush. She closes the folder, leaving it in plain view on the table like an unexploded device. Her tone remains calm, deliberate. All I'll say is this. When leaders decide that certain details of their lives are too inconvenient to share, it's usually because those details matter more than they want to admit. And when those details connect to public resources, money, or the image of the office, the public has a right to know. A faint murmur ripples through the live audience. Melania keeps her posture perfect, but she doesn't respond. The silence is almost louder than words. Jasmine holds her gaze for a few seconds more before turning toward the camera, speaking directly to the millions watching at home. The American people deserve leaders who are as transparent as they expect ordinary citizens to be. And if leaders choose not to be, it's our job to make sure the truth doesn't stay hidden. even if that truth makes people uncomfortable. Melania finally answers, her tone clipped but steady. I am very comfortable with the truth, Congresswoman. Then you'll be comfortable with what comes next, Jasmine replies without hesitation. The audience reacts, not with applause, but with that low, collective sound people make when they realize they've just witnessed something historic. In the control room, producers are frantically gesturing, checking the clock, knowing they've just captured the segment that will define the night's broadcast. When the break finally comes, the lights dim slightly, but the tension doesn't dissipate. Viewers at home are already replaying the exchange in their minds. Clips are hitting social media within minutes. Jasmine sliding the documents across the table, Melania's pause before answering, the cutting back and forth. By the time the commercials end, Twitter is on fire. Hashtags like News Jasmine vs Melania and Chakyo She Brought Receipts trend across major cities. On TikTok, dramatic edits of the moment rack up hundreds of thousands of views before the broadcast even ends. Cable news outlets begin looping the exchange in their breaking segments, each framing it differently. Some calling it a necessary reckoning, others a political stunt. Back in the studio, the final segment feels almost irrelevant. The panel talks briefly about foreign policy, but everyone knows the real story happened 20 minutes earlier. Even Roland, who tries to lighten the mood with a joke, can't shift the gravity of the moment. When the show wraps, Melania is escorted out swiftly by aides. She offers a polite handshake to the host, but doesn't glance back. Jasmine takes her time, gathering her notes, thanking the production crew, and walking out with a quiet confidence. The kind you only see in someone who knows they landed exactly the hit they came to deliver. Outside, reporters are already waiting. Congresswoman, do you expect the First Lady to issue a statement? One calls out. I expect the truth to come out, Jasmine replies simply, and I expect the American people will demand it. Within hours, the political machinery kicks into gear. The White House releases a short, polished statement. The First Lady remains committed to her work and will not be distracted by baseless insinuations. But it's too late. The narrative has already been set. In living rooms across the country, people are choosing sides. Some see Jasmine as a bold truth-teller. Others call her an opportunist. But both camps agree on one thing. This moment won't be forgotten soon. And somewhere, in the quiet of her office, Jasmine knows the storm has only just begun, and she's ready to stand in the middle of it.